Between Jurickson Profar's suspension, Ronaldo Lopez going to the IL, DFA and Hector Neris, and then the game they played last night, Monday was a rough day for the Atlanta Braves. Here's what they're going to do next. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Tuesday, April 1st. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby. You can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And there's no sugarcoating this. Yesterday was one of the worst days for the Atlanta Braves in a while, right? Because of just everything that happened. Your plan A for helping to fix the bullpen and Hector Neris got DFA'd. You saw Jurickson Profar suspended for half the season and now have questions about what's going to happen when he comes back and what type of player will he be. You placed Ronaldo Lopez on the injured list, and then you had to go play the Dodgers. Bright side is you broke the inning scoreless streak with a ninth inning home run from Michael Harris II. But let's look at some of those situations, the Lopez situation, the Neris situation, some more fallout from the Profar suspension, and figure out what Atlanta does next. And I think the first one I want to get to here, we did a whole live show yesterday on the Profar situation because actually we did the show before the Ronaldo Lopez info was out, and the Profar statement from the MLBPA came during the middle of the show. So I read that live on air. So it's in the podcast feed on both audio and on YouTube. You can go back and find it to just get the basics on the Jurickson Profar suspension, right? We're going to touch more on that a little bit later. I've got some other questions and things. But I want to get to Ronaldo Lopez first. Because he went on the injured list with shoulder inflammation. Obviously not great, right? And this is a situation where there's a lot of uncertainty right now. Let's break down what we know. So Ronaldo Lopez made his start last week against the Padres, and he was okay, right? He wasn't great. None of the Braves starters, other than Spencer Schwellenbach, have been great in their first time out. Let's say that. And the biggest question we had going into the start was the fastball velocity for Ronaldo Lopez. We remembered in spring, he was down quite a bit, even more so than he normally is. His first pitch of the game was a 92.7 mile an hour center cut fastball that Fernando Tatis just launched for a home run, like 110 off the bat, 110 and change. I think you round up to 111. But the velocity recovered, right? The next two outs he got on Tatis were 97.9 mile an hour on a fly out and 97 miles an hour on a ground out. But what was notable in that outing for me, we talked about this a little bit last week, was the lack of whiffs that Ronaldo Lopez got. He threw 94 pitches in that outing and got 3 whiffs. 2 were on the slider in 7 swings. 1 was on the fastball in 27 swings. He threw 49 fastballs. They swung at 27 of them. He got 1 whiff. A very uncharacteristic performance. And apparently from there, he reportedly felt okay after the game. Most pitchers, starting pitchers, the secret fans don't realize, most starting pitchers feel like crap after games. You're constantly sore. You're not doing well. You're not feeling great after a game. He threw a side session on Sunday, like usual, and went to the trainers and said that he still didn't feel great. He wasn't bouncing back like he normally does. They went and checked him out. They said there's some inflammation there. So he went on the injured list for that, and he is scheduled for an MRI to see if there's anything structural. From what I understand, he was either having the MRI late yesterday or at some point in time today. So I would imagine when Brian Snitker meets with the media in LA today, we will get an update on the status of that MRI, if there is anything structural there, if they think this is just a, hey, you rest for 10 days and you come back. So that's where we are on the injury and how it happened. And really, that's all that I can tell you on Lopez. It's a lot of questions right now, right? We're asking, what's the status of the MRI so we can figure out how long he's out for. But Bryce Elder was recalled to replace Ronaldo Lopez. And there's two things I want to get to on that topic. Elder is going to make the final start of the series on Wednesday. Chris Sale goes tonight, Elder tomorrow. I want to get to the differences in how Bryce Elder looks. And I want to get to the plan after Bryce Elder, okay? So, I wrote this up, by the way. If you're subscribed to the newsletter, you got all these notes about Bryce Elder on Saturday after he made his start for Gwinnett on Friday night for the season opener. So, bravestoday.com. It is free. Obviously, we do love paid subscriptions. That does help support everything we're doing over here at Braves Today, but it is a free newsletter. And Elder went 2 2/3 innings against Charlotte, the Charlotte Knights, which is the AAA of the Chicago White Sox. And in some ways, it's probably a better team with more talent than the actual Chicago White Sox. Good and bad on this one. The good, he struck out 7 batters in 2 2/3 innings. It's a surprising amount of strikeouts from Bryce Elder because he's never been a big strikeout guy. The downside, he walked 4, he allowed 3 hits, including a homer, and he threw 71 pitches, but only 41 were strikes. So there's a couple things that I've noticed. I've talked in the past about now that his velocity's ticked up a little bit, it feels like he's hanging the slider too much. He did some really interesting things with the pitch mix in that outing. I apologize for those of you on YouTube. I keep looking over to the side. I have to move the notes from Saturday from that newsletter over here. So he did this odd thing where he platooned against righties. He was only throwing the sinker and the slider. Okay. The sinker was put into play twice, and both of them were rockets. 102.7 and 102.1. The second one was a home run from shortstop Colson Montgomery. Both of them were left up in the zone. So the sinker and the slider both kind of got hung a little bit. And against lefties, he added in the changeup, the cutter, and the four-seamer. So it was a much more robust arsenal with more variety against lefties. The righties, he was very basic and just sinker slider, and neither pitch was that good. And when he added in those other pitches, they were pretty decent. The four-seamer hit 94 miles an hour, which I think might be a new career high for Bryce Elder. It averaged 93. He had 16 inches of induced vertical break, which is right there at MLB average, which is better than he's ever been in his career, both velocity and from a movement perspective. It's more like a conventional fastball now. He hit 18 or 19 inches on a couple of those. So there's good and there's bad there, right? All of the damage in that game off of him came off of 4 players. Chase Medroth, Colson Montgomery, Edgar Quero, and Kyle Teel. They combined top of the lineup to go 3 for 5, 3 RBIs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. Everybody else went 0 for 6 with 1 walk and 5 strikeouts. I bring that up because those 4 are all rated prospects. Nobody else in the lineup was. So I'm a little concerned about his success that he showed in that AAA start was against organizational guys, fringe major leaguers, quad A guys. And his struggles were against the rated prospects who are going to be future major leaguers. And against righties, he was still very basic on that sinker-slider combo and was not using anything else, when I would argue that it's possible now the four-seam fastball's a better pitch than the sinker because it actually works when you throw it up in the zone, right? So a little bit of concern there. The other part of this I want to talk about is you're running low on options now. You went into camp with 7 starters ready to go, right? 7 guys stretched out to be in your rotation potentially. Ian Anderson's gone. That leaves you at 6. Ronaldo Lopez is on the IL. That leaves you at 5. If he doesn't miss very much time, then you're good, right? He'll come back soon. Elder goes back to Gwinnett, and then you integrate Strider when Strider's ready. Strider's next rehab start, by the way, is on Friday in Gwinnett. So the home opener is tonight. He starts on Friday. Sean Murphy starts a rehab outing tonight in Gwinnett, and the thought process would be he would be catching Strider on Friday. If Lopez is out for a while, Spencer Strider's your 6th option. You swap out Strider and Elder, and you're good to go. What if you need somebody else before Strider's back? What if you have a doubleheader? What if you have to scratch somebody? You've got Davis Daniel, you've got Hurston Waldrop, and I guess you've got Chasen Shreve. They used him as a starter on Sunday. Second time in his 16-year career he's made starts. 4 innings, 2 runs, 4 hits, no walks, 6 strikeouts. Actually a pretty decent start for a dude that's not a starter. But Atlanta's used between 10 and 13 conventional starters every year of the last 4. And I say conventional starters because when I did that math, I took out relievers who just opened a game and then left. Right now, I don't know who those 10 guys are. Because right now, with Lopez on the IL, Strider comes back soon, that gives you 6. So again, you're okay at the moment. But the next time somebody else is unavailable, you're going to be starting a guy you're probably not super comfortable with. Not a great situation to be in. In just a second, let's talk about Hector Neris getting DFA'd because I've got thoughts and questions about what happens next. We'll do that next right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. You guys have heard me talk about this almost every day. One of my favorite companies on the planet for a reason. They make the absolute best sunflower seeds on the market. 8 different flavors you can try. Original, lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, Parmesan and pepper, cinnamon toast, dill pickle, hatch chili, and smokehouse barbecue. So you can go to ChinookSeedery.com and get a variety pack or get a sampler pack. You want to try all 8. And then when you figure out what you like, either buy a variety pack of all 8 flavors or build your own case with just the flavors you like. Use promo code BRAVES for 10% off your order and free shipping on orders over $40. So ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. That's ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsey Crosby breaking down some of the really just bad news from yesterday. And in the morning, the Braves DFA'd Hector Neris. Not arguably bad news, right? Something where we were hoping that was going to happen, but maybe not as early as it actually did. And kind of a reminder here, Atlanta's pitching staff this season, going into last night's game, I've not added in last night's numbers into this yet, but going into last night's game, Hector Neris had allowed 5 earned runs in 1 full inning over 2 outings. Everybody else combined allowed 12 earned runs over 31 innings pitched. Right? Yeah. An issue. Definitely an issue. And something that they had to resolve. So Hector Neris is now gone. And it's funny. He was on a major league deal when he got added to the roster, right? It was a split deal. When he added to the roster, his major league salary, but it prorates. So depending on if the transaction, I don't know how the pay works. If you get DFA'd in the morning, do you get paid for that day or not? But if he just got paid for 4 days of the season on a $2 million salary, he got $42,780.75 to allow 5 earned runs. If you're wondering about that math, by the way, there's 162 games, but it's a 187-day season. They don't get paid per game. They get paid per day. So just keep that in mind. So that's why it's $42,780.75. But Atlanta called up Jesse Chavez in his place. And I had some questions about the call-up when it happened. Chavez obviously released by the Rangers early in spring. He got in 1 appearance for Atlanta at the very end of camp. I believe it was before they left Florida to go out west. 8 2/3 innings total, 9 runs, 8 earned on 13 hits with 6 walks to 7 strikeouts. Atlanta did not take Chavez for the opening day roster. They sent him to Gwinnett. So he stayed behind in Florida for a couple days and then went with the team up north to Gwinnett. And he pitched over the weekend in Gwinnett. But they called him up. And I was a little bit iffy about the decision, especially when he came out. The first batter he faced was Kike Hernandez, who launched a home run off of him last night. After that, he finished with only 1 other hit allowed. He did walk 2. He got 1 strikeout in the 2 innings against the Dodgers. But it's something where I'm not questioning. I am suspicious that Chavez was not selected because he was the best possible option. Okay. It feels like Jesse Chavez was selected because Buck Farmer, Dylan Covey, Craig Kimbrell, like instead of those guys. Because one, I don't think Craig Kimbrell's ready. He's still in extended spring. He's not pitching in Gwinnett yet. He's going to be, but he's not pitching in Gwinnett yet. He's still in extended spring from what I understand. And they didn't necessarily want to add a Buck Farmer or Dylan Covey just to then need to, if you have to make a roster move, you either have to DFA one of those guys or option down a Deisable Hernandez or maybe even a Dylan Lee. So I'm worried this is that classic Atlanta thing. And a lot of teams do this. It's not just Atlanta. But I'm worried this is that classic thing of the Braves chose Jesse Chavez because he gives them the most depth and flexibility versus chose him because he was the best pitcher right now. I find it hard to believe that 41-year-old Jesse Chavez, who was not great in spring, is a better option right now than a Buck Farmer or a Dylan Covey. So that's my concern there. That's my frustration there. We will see when Kimbrell is ready. I would imagine as soon as he's ready, he comes up. If Chavez does not look close to that early 2024 form where he was awesome, he had a 1.32 ERA across his 434 innings, if you remember. They were trying to get him into the All-Star game, and then he turned into a pumpkin in the second half of the schedule. If he doesn't look like that, he may not be long for the roster, and that may be the roster spot that you end up giving to Craig Kimbrell, or that may be the roster spot that whoever bumps out of the rotation, either AJ Smith-Shawver being optioned down to Gwinnett, or if Grant Holmes goes to the bullpen, that may be the roster spot that Spencer Strider gets. So we'll see what happens. Or I guess right now you got Bryce Elder. So Bryce Elder, it'd be the Bryce Elder spot. That's on me. I just talked about that a segment ago. Sorry about that. But I'm not thrilled with the selection of calling up Jesse Chavez. Again, after the first batter last night, he didn't look terrible, right? The home run to Kike Hernandez was early in the at-bat on the first batter he faced. After that, 1 more hit, 2 walks, 1 strikeouts, but no other runs across those 2 innings. It feels like that's fine for a garbage time situation, but there's got to be better options than a 41-year-old Jesse Chavez. In just a minute, let's get to a little bit more of the fallout from Jurickson Profar, because I've got a lot of thoughts about what the team does from here. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsey Crosby talking about just the terrible, no good, very bad Monday the Atlanta Braves had. And we're not going to get into the whole thing on the Profar suspension, what happened and all of that. That's, again, we have a whole show that we went live for yesterday in the podcast feed on both audio and video. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the Braves Today YouTube channel and don't have notifications turned on, maybe turn those on so you know when breaking news happens and we go live to talk about it. I don't know this for a fact. I think we may have been the first of those major Braves podcasts to go live and talk about this last night. But either way, I'm not trying to race and be first. I'm just trying to point out having podcast notifications turned on is a decent thing. But what I want to talk about, I think, here is a couple of things. Some of what the team said after the suspension, some of what happens when he's back, and where the other outfielders are in their process of getting ready. Okay? So we've seen the team statement. It's short. It is, we're disappointed to learn this. We respect the program, support Jurickson, whatever. The translation of that is they're pissed, right? The translation of that is they are not happy, obviously. And there was an article in the AJC, I believe it came out like 1 a.m. Eastern, from Michael Cunningham, asking if the Braves were sold a bill of goods by Jurickson Profar, because are his numbers going to come back to what he did last year after the suspension? Profar pointed out in his statement released by the Players Association that he passed 8 different drug tests during the season last year, and this was an off-season drug test. So either he was, assuming that is correct, we have no way to know the details of drug tests that were passed. Assuming that is correct, did he use something over the offseason? What's going on? Whatever. But what the Braves said about this is, Brian Sitker said, I talked to the guys in Jurickson earlier as well. I hate it for our club and our team, but Major League Baseball has their program and we need to honor that. It's just going to afford an opportunity for someone else for 80 games. So that is less than a ringing endorsement of Jurickson Profar. Snit did say he was going to keep the conversation private. He wasn't going to go into details of what they talked about. He did acknowledge that Profar expressed remorse about the whole situation, for whatever good that'll do. Matt Olson said, quote, "It's obviously tough. I'm not going to get into it. It's not my story to tell. I'm sure Pro will say something for himself, so I'll let him handle that." I believe Olson either did not yet know. That was during clubhouse hours yesterday, which I believe may have been around the same time the statement was released. So Matt Olson legitimately may not have known that Jurickson Profar released a statement through the Players Association when he said that to reporters yesterday. Austin Riley said, "It's unfortunate, but we have to play baseball. We have a tough series in San Diego." We had a tough series in San Diego, and we're worried about what's in front of us now. That's all we're worried about. And honestly, the mindset here is correct. There's nothing you can do about this. So let's not, as players, we're not going to focus on this because we have a game to play. And not just any game. We got to face the Dodgers. You're not facing the Athletics. You're not facing the Rockies. You're facing the Dodgers. But I want to talk about what happens when Jurickson Profar is back. Because the way, like, he's already been sent back to Atlanta. The way that this works, he cannot practice with the team. He can't be in the dugout with games. He can't play in the minors. He, in essence, is locked out of everything for 80 games. He's eligible to come back at the end of June. Typically, on some of these situations, when a guy comes back, they get a little bit of time in the minors to work on their, it's essentially an injury rehab assignment, right? They can go down there and get their timing back and all of that. But you'll have him for just under half the season when he comes back. And you're going to have to play Jurickson Profar. Even if he doesn't hit the numbers that he did last year from a power perspective, he had career highs in, I believe it was OPS and home runs, he's still a guy that can get on base. Now, the issue is, it's a corner outfield profile of a questionable defender without a lot of power isn't worth 3 years and $42 million, right? $12 million this year, although he's going to lose 5.8 of that, and $15 million each of the next 2 years. For those of you who have asked or said something about this, there is no provision for Atlanta to get out of the contract because he failed a drug test. I agree that it would be nice if that was an option. I would like if the team could void a guarantee, could have some sort of recourse if they signed a player and it turned out the player used performance-enhancing drugs. Because to the point that the AJC made earlier, it's entirely possible they signed him thinking his improvements last year were mechanical changes, and they were actually steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. But that is not how that works right now. That is not an option in the CBA. Here is a prescribed punishment under the league's joint drug and testing program. He will serve that punishment, And then in the eyes of the CBA, he is back to a normal player with no other punishment able to be given to him. But should the Braves make the postseason, there's an open question, and I honestly feel once the Braves qualify for the postseason, and again, we're working off the assumption that they will. I know not a lot of Braves fans think they will right now. Once the Braves qualify for the postseason, I think there's an argument to bench Jurickson Profar. Because anybody suspended under the drug policy is ineligible for postseason play. Jurickson Profar, Braves make the postseason, he can't play. He can't be on the roster. I don't even know if they'll let him be in the dugout. He may not even be allowed to be around the team in the postseason because he's not on the roster and he can't be on the travel squad either. So I don't know how that works, but I don't think he can even be with the team if they have to travel, at home, whatever. And so there's an argument that whenever Atlanta qualifies, from that point on, bench Jurickson Profar, right? Your corner outfield should be some combination. Your left field, because we're assuming Ronald's in right. If Ronald's not, you're not making the postseason, it feels like. But you should play some combination of Jarred Kelenic or Brian De La Cruz or Alex Verdugo or whoever you trade for, whoever it is, over Jurickson Profar. Because once you've qualified for the postseason, unless the seeding matters that much, playing Profar does nothing to get you ready for October. Right? Any at-bats, any defensive innings that he gets after you've qualified for the postseason is a lack of opportunity for somebody else to get better and get ready for the postseason. And so here's the thing, I don't expect Atlanta to do that. But that should be what they do. That should be how it works, but I don't expect them to. I don't expect Atlanta to bench a veteran, although we haven't seen a veteran come off of a PED suspension in Atlanta. This may be a different scenario than how they've treated other guys who have missed time. There's a difference in benching somebody after an injury and benching somebody after a suspension. But what I would want to see is Jurickson Profar not playing after the Braves qualify for the postseason. I do think it's relevant right now to talk about how they're going to replace him in the short term. We saw Brian De La Cruz in left and Jarred Kelenic in right. Stuart Fairchild was not yet with the team. He is supposed to report, I believe he's reporting today to LA, so he should be with the team tonight, and he is the immediate short-term final outfield spot on the roster. I would imagine De La Cruz and Kelenic will still play every day, but Fairchild does have decent platoon numbers against lefties, so there is an opportunity there. Updates on the other two outfielders, on Ronald and on Alex Verdugo. Verdugo has not yet played the outfield. He is in extended spring. He is still mostly doing live ABs and cage work and DHing some, but he has not yet played the outfield. So it's not like you're going to add Alex Verdugo for Friday's home opener against the Marlins. It's probably going to be another, I would imagine, at least 2 weeks probably before you see Alex Verdugo in a game. Ronald Acuna Jr. is heading to LA soon to get checked out medically. Dr. Neil Atrache, who did his surgery, who did both of the knee surgeries, is out in LA. Once Ronald gets cleared by Dr. El Atrache, he'll be able to add the last couple things that he has not yet done in the rehab cycle. He has not been cutting. He's sprinting. He has not been cutting. He has not played the outfield. He has DH'd. He has done outfield drills, right? But he has not actually played the outfield. So once he gets checked out from Dr. Neil Atrache and cleared, he will be able to start playing the outfield. And I imagine sometime soon after that is when the rehab outings would begin. So you're probably stuck with Brian De La Cruz and Jarred Kelenic, I would imagine at least for a week, as your two corner outfield guys. Again, Stuart Fairchild may rotate in from time to time against lefties and stuff like that. But Alex Verdugo is not going to be ready. He's not playing the outfield yet. He's still in extended spring. And Ronald is not cleared by the doctor to play the outfield yet. So that's where you are as of now. Technically, you do have another outfield option on the roster in Marcell Ozuna. AA's talked about tracking balls isn't a problem. He can field the position. It's throwing the ball back in. His arm is just so weak that you're going to give up the ability to hold runners and all of that if you put Ronald Acuna, if you put Marcell Ozuna out there in left field. But technically, in an emergency, you do have an option, right? This has been Braves Today for Tuesday, April 1st. You're listening on audio. Do us a favor, leave a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so when we drop that next episode, and maybe also leave a 5-star review. We'll see you tomorrow. This has been Braves Today.